All right. Hi, honors chemistry folks. In this video, we're going to take a look at polyatomic ions. So with polyatomic ions, we've already kind of learned our basics on page 7. But what we're going to do now is take a look at our more involved polyatomic ions on page 10 of your packet. Now, as it turns out, when we talk about polyatomic ions, we really kind of have a family of polyatomic ions, where what can happen is we can change the number of oxygen atoms. So at this point, you should probably take out a sheet of paper. In this case, if you want to do some notes, you're also going to have to write and name these polyatomic ions. So let's take a look at these. So when it comes to polyatomic ions, again, we can change the number of oxygen atoms, and that's going to change their name. So as we look at this kind of table on page 10, the ones that you're familiar with are the ones that are shaded gray. You're familiar with a number of polyatomic ions that end in ate, like bromate, chlorate, iodate, nitrate, permanganate, although we're not going to apply this to permanganate, carbonate, chromate, sulfate, phosphate. Again, you're familiar with those already. But again, we can change the number of oxygen atoms each one has. If we add one oxygen, the name's going to be different. It's going to be pair at the beginning, ate at the end. If we have one less oxygen than what we already know, we're going to change the ending to ITE. If we have two less oxygens, it becomes hypo in front and ite, ITE, at the end. So for example, bromate we know, BrO3 minus. That's on the back of the periodic table we have, it's bromate. But if we lose an oxygen, it's going to be BrO2 minus. That's going to be bromite. That ITE ending tells us it's one less oxygen than bromate. Notice our charge doesn't change though, it still has that charge of -1. If we lose two oxygens, it'd be BrO minus, and that would be called hypobromite. If we gain one oxygen, we add the prefix pair in front, and we're going to keep that ending ATE. So if we had BrO4 minus, and notice that's one more oxygen than normal, that would be pair bromate. So what you're going to have to do is write out your polyatomic ions. I just realized that I don't think I'm going to be able to write on the screen. Nope, I'm not. Wonderful. So let's see what I can do here. There we go. I think this should work. So you're going to have to write this out for a number of ions. So let's do nitrate. So nitrate normally we know would be NO3 with that charge of -1. But if we add an oxygen, we're going to add the prefix pair in front, so it's pair nitrate, and it would be NO4 minus. We can also take away an oxygen and have NO2 minus. When we do that, the ending becomes ITE, it becomes nitrate. We can also have two less oxygens, and it'd be NO, and that gets the prefix hypo, and that same ending of ITE, hyponitrate. Let me do this with another one. Let's take a look at carbonate. Carbonate we know is CO3 minus, but again, what can happen is we can change the number of oxygens. We can have one more oxygen. So it becomes CO4 with that same charge of 2 minus. Okay, we know if we add an oxygen, it's pair in front. So pair carbonate. We can take away an oxygen, keeping the same charge. And instead of carbonate, it becomes carbonite with that ITE. And we can also take away 2 oxygens. And if it's 2 oxygens, 2 changes from what we're used to, we get that prefix hypo in front of carbonite, telling us there's 2 less oxygens. So what you're going to have to do is write these out for all of the ions this applies to. So that means bromate. You need to write and name all of them. For chlorate, for iodate, for nitrate, for carbonate, for sulfate, for chromate, and then I think the last one we're going to have to write this out for is phosphate. So for your homework, you're going to have to write out the family of ions formed from each of those 8 ions, just like I did with nitrite and carbonate. You're going to have to write those out and name them.